Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. This is Reservations, and I'm Jeremy Blair.
And I'm Rain Wayland. There was something I was going to ask you.
Okay.
And I forget now.
Damn.
Yeah, I forget. So before we started recording, Ashley and I ran up to Target real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Literally just so we could get breakfast stuff in the morning. And that's literally all we got. We went up there and we got those mini Eggo waffles, the 4 ones, the cinnamon.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. That shit's tight.
I don't eat breakfast anymore. I used to eat breakfast. When I was like a kid and when I was in high school and in college, I would eat breakfast. I don't eat breakfast anymore. I don't know. I wake up and I go to work and I have coffee at work. Does that count?
I've just started having breakfast again. Just because, I don't know. I feel like if I should probably have something in the morning to get the day started. I don't know. This is such riveting podcasting, for the, in the morning, I like to have some eggs and toast,
Well, this does have a movie tie-in because movie and television anyway, that I don't understand the trope and how anyone thought it was ever realistic that people have full breakfasts on a Wednesday before work and before school. It's who's making that? How early did you have to get up? Why is the sun out? You know what I mean? It's at 7 in the morning. School starts in an hour. You know what I mean? What's going on? It's, and everyone's always late. They're oh, I gotta go, I'm late. Manage your time better. Why are you already late and you're still at the house? Anyway,
that's such an oddly specific gripe.
Listen,
about
if I'm late to work, I'm late on the road. I'm not late at the house. That's crazy. Anyway, yeah, I have a lot of soul searching to do, but that's one of the
yeah. That's such an oddly specific gripe on American tropes in movies and television.
I hate it. I hate it because it's so unrealistic of how at least my life was growing up. I would get up so early; it would be dark outside still. I would get to school. My parents they both worked, and so they're dropping me off at school at 7:30. There's no time to eat a full ass breakfast. And then in high school, I had swim practice at 6:30. It doesn't matter, but I'm just it just seems it's
well and then the older sibling's the one that's always I'm running late, and they just grab toast,
right,
and they shovel it into their mouth oh, I'm running late, I gotta go.
Oh, can't have this 5-star meal you made me, Mom.
Go
Who's
fuck
at
yourself.
home, and we live in a 2-story 4-bedroom house.
2-story 4-bedroom house, full pool in the backyard.
Yeah.
Because there was always a pool. There was always a pool in the backyard. I think your gripe is just with Even Stevens.
The dad's a part-time substitute teacher. You know what I mean? It's what is going on? She stays at home. Whatever. It doesn't matter.
I think your gripe is it's just with every Disney Channel show.
Probably.
Even Stevens, Phil of the Future.
Yeah. I'll give Phil of the Future a pass because they have future technology. So they had they had gadgets and gizmos to help them out, to help them, cut time. But yeah,
Do you remember when Orlando Bloom guest starred in an episode of Phil of the Future?
No.
Yeah, I remember that.
Jesus Christ!
I was into That's So Raven, and I was oh, that's Eddie.
We are off to an amazing start.
It's all going to tie together.
Yeah. Nope. Not this time.
Oh shit. Well, welcome back to the show, everyone. So before we get started, we should probably address the elephant in the room, that the audio and video are coming out Same time, I will let Jeremy explain why.
Yeah,
Not to put you on the
so
spot or anything.
that's fine. Had a bit of not quite a family emergency, but it was like something that I had to attend to yesterday, and we just couldn't record. Um, and I forgot what the reason was why we didn't on Sunday, but either way, um, we kept pushing it, and then the next day I had something come up, not quite an emergency, but it might as well have been, and then anyway, life. This is what happens when we're not prepared. We don't bank episodes. This is what happens.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, in Sunday, the reason why we didn't record is I didn't feel prepared enough.
Oh,
And you know what? I still kind of don't, but you know what? But it's mainly just because this movie has so much symbolism and so much that can be interpreted. So
yeah.
But Jeremy, would you like to remind everyone what we're talking about this week?
So this week we are discussing Alex Garland's psychological horror thriller folk horror film Men.
You told me about this movie and you were like, it's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
And I was like, sure. I saw the trailer and I was like, okay, yeah. I don't know what this movie's about, but sure. And then we got the opportunity to see it with our buddy Alex.
Yeah.
Because his wife Emily told us, like, hey, we're gonna plan a surprise birthday party for him, get him out of the apartment.
Oh, easy.
And we're like, bet. And we took him out for dinner too, didn't we, or lunch or something like that?
I honestly don't remember. Yes, probably, but
I think
that was so long ago.
I think I don't remember.
So long. I was
but I know. Yeah, I know. It ended with us going to see Men together, and then we went back to their apartment and had a grand old time. But I remember all three of us after the movie's over, we all kind of looked at each other and we were like, "So what does it mean?"
I mean, we were confounded. I had no clue on even where to start in trying to figure it all out. I thought it was so dense and so rich with allegory and symbolism and metaphor, and I was like, I don't get any of this. I loved it. I remember just loving the tone. I loved the mystery, the ambiguity, the surrealism. I loved all of it. But I just didn't get it. And but it made me love it a little bit more because it's like, well, that's something for me to look forward to. I'll again watch it, probably several more times, and then I'll get it, which is always fun. That's the fun about this sort of movie analysis, movie study thing that we like to do, is that if we don't get a movie, you don't understand it, that's really the fun of it, because you get to figure it out and you get to be with the material for longer. If you love a film, if you love a movie, it's more fun to spend more time with it and to explore it further. And so these types of movies I really gravitate towards most of the time.
Yeah. Well, and damn it, man, I forgot again. I was like, oh, I'm gonna add this in, and I forgot. But I will agree with that, because rewatching this, I forgot. I was like, man, this movie's just so good. I want to add one thing, and then you can give the people the synopsis. I was so I was re-excited about this movie rewatching it, that at my branch we do like a daily, weekly question, and someone put, I think it was what's your favorite horror / Halloween movie, and I couldn't just pick one, so I picked 3.
Yeah.
And I told everyone, I was like, I know that's a cop out, but these are the first 3 that popped in my head. It was the Candyman remake sequel, Nope, and then Men, because
Nice.
I was like, this one specifically, Men. I was pointing to Men. I was like, that one's steak sauce.
Yeah,
But everyone was more divided about the fact that I like Nope, and apparently no one else liked Nope.
that's insane. Um,
I said the same thing.
yeah, that's crazy. People just didn't get it. But yeah, I remember seeing the trailer, and immediately I saw Alex Garland's name, and I was completely on board because I had already seen from that point most of his stuff. I mean, I had seen, of course, 28 Days Later. I'd seen Ex Machina, Annihilation, Devs, so I was in, um, and was not disappointed. Um, Again, we'll get through all of it in the best way that we possibly can.
Yeah. So why don't you start with that synopsis as best you can?
All right. Here we go. So, we are following the character Harper as she is traveling to a country village in England, away from London, where she's from, after she suffers a traumatic loss of her husband, who committed suicide, which we later find out. Um, and over time, you get to understand that it was an abusive relationship and that he was terrible to her and that he was controlling every bit of her life. And so when she wants the divorce, he ended up killing himself. Um, and so to try to shed some of that experience and some of that trauma, she needs to get away for a little bit. And so she goes and she rents a house out in the country. There she meets Jeffrey, um, who, or Joffrey, however you want to pronounce it, who I guess owns the house. And he's sort of an oddball. He's helpful in a detrimental sense. He's overly kind, overly helpful, to the point where it's almost condescending. Um, and so that's sort of strange. And then as she's continues her time there, she ends up, meeting a lot of different men in the town, all played by Rory Kinnear, who is doing God's work in terms of acting
Yeah.
in this film. He is incredible.
Yeah.
And so she keeps, bumping into these men in certain situations where each time it's sort of another negative experience in a different way. There's also what seems to be a homeless man that's following her and harassing her throughout her time there. And as we find more and more about her traumatic experience with her husband James, she now has to confront this almost supernatural like being that we will know through our research as the Green Man, who the homeless man ends up being. And through her interactions with the Green Man, and through these very surreal and allegorical turn of events, especially with the last 10 minutes, she's working her way through her trauma, through her grief, through her misplaced guilt. And through all of this, she has been in contact with a friend of hers who, after seeing how distraught she is by all of these interactions with these men and this homeless man that she goes to visit, once she gets there after all of this all of this nightmare and all of this this insane after this insane evening she has, she shows up and she is pregnant, which is probably super important, and probably means a whole hell of a lot. And so that's Men. It has a lot to do with folklore, folk tradition, Christianity, misogyny, um, abuse, guilt, trauma. This movie's got it all.
After I rewatched the movie and was doing all my research, I realized that we both picked movies back to back about women under the thumb of misogyny.
Yeah, that was
Um,
unintentional.
yeah. Yeah. Last week didn't no one saw that one. So hopefully maybe everyone will want to see this one. Um, so where would you like to begin?
Well, I guess we could start with what kind of kicks off everything, which is her and James. James is the only other man in the film, not played
Mhm.
by Rory Kaner. Um, and just this portion of the film alone is just so rich and so dense with information, and symbolism and meaning, because we understand that through their arguments and through their breakup, essentially, that he is overly controlling. He has completely overshadowed her entire life. He has taken over all of it. He is um, manipulative emotionally, verbally, and then will become physically abusive to Harper. Um, and we see all of this in these flashbacks. Um, and, like, for instance, she wants a divorce. Okay.
Mhm.
He immediately says, if you divorce me, I'll kill myself and it'll be your fault. That's a huge manipulation, right? I mean,
Mhm.
he's trying to, guilt her and make it seem like she's doing something to him instead of trying to take back control of her life.
Yeah.
He takes her phone as she's trying to contact her friend, and she says that he's scaring her, which he's scaring all of us that are watching. And again, he turns it around on her. He's making it seem like you're scaring me. You're the one that's doing this to us. This is your fault. You're doing this. Why are you making me do this? Blah 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 blah. And it's such a it's I don't think it's an oversimplified confrontation. I don't think he is being over the top in his manipulation. I do think that this does happen all the time in just this
Mhm.
exact way. I mean, this isn't something that's meant to be overt or too on the nose, or um or too obvious. I think that this is, played beautifully real, um
Mhm.
and horrifically real in this argument. And then we later, during more flashback, he ends up storming upstairs to the upstairs neighbor, breaking into their house, or forcing his way into their house, and shimmying down the balcony to get to their apartment. Now, here's the first question
Mhm.
of the show. Did he fall or did he jump?
So when we first saw this together, I thought for sure he jumped.
Mhm.
I was like, he told her he was going to do it. He told her he was going to kill himself if she does this. But rewatching it, I was like, it seems more plausible that he did try to just, you know what? I'm going to shimmy down their balcony. I'm going to get to ours, and Harper and I are going to finish this. And then he just slipped.
Yeah.
To me, I feel like in context of the story, that makes more sense because Harper would never know, especially as she says to the priest, I don't know if he just slipped or if he let himself go. So she still um is feeling this guilt, but I feel like from a story perspective, I think he genuinely just slipped. That I think he was just using the manipulation of I'll kill myself if you divorce me, just as a manipulation.
Yeah.
um I think James is, as a written as a character, I think he's too prideful to
Yeah.
actually kill himself.
I think he's too narcissistic because he wants to see the fruit of his labor. He doesn't want to kill himself and then, not see the impact he's made, right? But so I do like that. There's merit in both, and both can be correct. I mean, it's not like there's one right answer. I think the look on
Right.
his face as he falls is so ambiguous because you can see that he is afraid and that he may have like, uh-oh, right? I'm falling. And then there's also, you can look at his face and see that, he's almost taunting her, like, look, see, look what you've done. So, I mean, brilliant acting performance in just that facial expression alone. When he falls, this is what becomes so fascinating about this movie, is because if you notice, he almost has Christ-like wounds. He has his palm is split through his forearm. His ankle is broken and almost detached. His side has been split open. His head is caved in. And so he, it's mimicking Christ wounds from the crucifixion, which I thought was fascinating. And it was something I noticed at the theater. I thought that was really, really cool. Because we're going to start getting into more religious symbolism and perhaps, maybe criticizing and putting a spotlight on the negative impacts of misogyny and patriarchy in terms of religion later on in the film. I did watch a video and I tried to understand what he was talking about, but he was trying to explain the red because all the flashbacks are red. In contrast with the green that is in the rest of the film. And he tried to explain it, and I think I kind of understood what he was getting at. It had biblical implications, and he was saying that it all stemmed from biblical text, but I didn't really get it. And it had to do with like how some Bibles are printed and how certain passages are in red and how blah 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 blah. Fair.
That seems like a reach to me.
A little bit. I think it's just, to me, it seemed like the red, because red is very prominent, red is important, red is intentional. I think the red is just meant to be the looming presence of this control, or a looming presence of not necessarily strictly misogyny or patriarchy or men in general. I think just a looming sense of narcissism, control, and I'm trying to think of another word and I can't, but you get what I'm saying. So in that instance with James there, it's everywhere, surrounded by it. She has no control over her life. He's so manipulative and so abusive that her life is surrounded by this red. And so when we get to the house in the countryside, at the village, the interior is red in some spots because it's still present, but it's not ever present as it was with James, right? With James there, it was ever present, but without him there, she's still facing these sort of challenges, but it's not as ever present in my eyes. That's how I felt about the red.
Well, and I know in terms of film, the color red is often used for bad omens, for death, and green usually for safe, and especially with the Green Man, which we'll get into later, green representing a change and a rebirth.
Right.
Now I want to go ahead and point this out now, at least for me. I didn't pick up on any of the religious
Okay.
religious part of the movie.
Okay.
I mean, I read that, a lot the statue of the hang on. Um I'm not even going to try to pronounce the Irish. The woman,
Yeah.
she's called Julia of the Breasts.
Yeah.
Um, I did read that stone carving is in a lot of churches, specifically Irish churches. But I didn't pick up on a lot of the religious stuff. I don't know. I remember first time around, I didn't pick up on a lot of things.
Mhm.
I truly didn't.
Yeah.
This time around, I was picking up on the misogyny, the lack of control in
Mhm.
Harper's life, and that each one of these men that Rory plays does kind of represent a different trauma that that women have to go through, and that's really what I kind of picked up on. I still this time I didn't pick up on anything
That's okay.
overtly religious.
Well, to be fair, when you go and see this movie and it's called Men, and you kind of have a brief understanding of what it is, and all these men are played by the same person, which leads the audience to believe they're all connected. And so, um, you're looking for in that, it's at least for me anyway. I was just looking for, what is he trying to say with this? Is it really going to be just an indictment on patriarchy and negative negative ways men are affecting women's lives, right? Which again,
Hmm.
on its surface, is completely fine and legitimate, and that would have been okay. But I think once you see that, oh, maybe he's doing something a little bit more than that, then you can open it up to, okay, it is more than that. Let me dive more into it, because for me, when I was looking at just that surface level of it, I was missing
Hmm.
stuff and it didn't seem complete to me. But when I was doing a little bit more research and I was like, okay, I need to learn who this Green Man guy is. I have no clue. Um, so like now I can't imagine it, but going into the theater not knowing who he is, I can't believe that I even ended up liking the movie, because it's like, it's such a huge part of it that you need to know
Yeah.
who he is and why he's important and what he represents and all of that. Um, but one thing that you notice watching the film, um, which I love, is Harper does not notice that these men all look the same. She is not reacting to it. She's not saying, oh, you look like Joffrey, or that kid looks like the priest, or that cop looks like the priest who looks like Joffrey, right? She's not reacting to it at all.
Can I disagree with that?
Sure, you can.
I noticed some subtle reactions this time around in
Okay.
Jessie Buckley's performance, where she kind of almost like a double take, like,
Mm-hmm.
huh. But I think it's meant to be kind of played off like when she sees the policeman for the first time, she's like, huh, that guy looks like Joffrey. But she kind of is like, maybe it's nothing. You
Yeah.
know. I think she is noticing it. I just don't think I think it's meant to be much more subtle. That
Interesting.
she's noticing they kind of look similar. But I don't think maybe she's not understanding it, or maybe she's just kind of like, maybe it's my eyes, or maybe my brain's just playing tricks on me or something.
See, now this is fun, because I don't agree with that, because I like to think that that is for our benefit as the audience, to see that they're all connected. But I don't think she notices at all, because there's nothing to notice for her, right? These are different
Mm-hmm.
people, and clearly different men. I think if she were to have noticed, it's too obvious they're the same for her not to be like, okay. what is going on, right?
Yeah.
Even the kid.
Well,
I mean,
but
with the kid, I'd be like, what the fuck is going on? you,
well,
all of you were the same.
and and maybe that was meant to be like the line with the priest where she says, "What the fuck are you?" Because
Yeah,
I think maybe by that point she's realizing, okay, you all look the same. What?
maybe. I'm not going to choose to see the film that way, but
Okay, that's fine.
yeah.
That's fine.
Um, yeah, the priest is gross.
Yeah.
The priest is
Yeah.
gross.
Well, dude, and that's the most, and we'll get to it, but that's the most misogynistic part of the whole movie, in my opinion.
Well,
But
it's more
we'll get to
sexually
that.
aggressive, for sure.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
makes it seem, I
Yeah.
think, a little bit worse. Um,
Yeah. But we'll
so
we'll, we'll get to that.
right. Um, okay, so when she meets Joffrey at the house, or
Mhm.
Jeffrey, whatever.
I think well, they say Jeffrey.
Okay, Jeffrey it is. So when she meets Jeffrey, the first thing she does when she goes to the house is what? Do you know? Do you remember?
She picks an apple.
Aha! She picks an apple. Religious allegory. So um, Eve eats the apple. He even mentions that it's forbidden fruit, which of course he's just joking around. Um, but is he joking around? Um, that's up to you, I guess. But it does seem that there maybe he's seeing this woman that's coming in and she's just doing whatever she wants, without any sort of rhyme or reason, no rules, no nothing. And he doesn't like that. What's the first thing he does? Is he takes her around the house and gives her all the rules, which may seem normal on the surface, but I think if you think about it for a little bit, it has more deeper implications that, it's a layer of control. And I think his kindness is a way of controlling her or a way of manipulating her, because he's being, again, overly kind and overly helpful. And it seems, again, I think it's borderline condescending, but it's also like, it's a way of almost love bombing in a way. Like, I'm going to do all of this for you. That way, maybe you owe me.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, definitely with the second rewatch, I realized that each person that Rory's playing, like I said, I think it represents a different
Yeah.
type of misogyny. So Jeffrey would be, well, I'm the nice guy.
Yeah.
Um, the guy who's like, well, I'm one of the good ones, that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
The police officer just doesn't give a shit, doesn't listen to her, doesn't pay attention, thinks that she's crazy.
Yeah, the police officers, he's the one who's like, what do you know?
Like, calm down.
The priest, of course, is the worst offender.
Sexually aggressive.
Okay, yeah, he's sexually aggressive. Definitely paints women as it's their fault.
And that they're objects, right? They're sexual objects. Yeah. And again, what's so brilliant is, yes, of course, that's what he's representing. But if you look at it on the literal sense, in the storytelling sense, you can see it as him just being sexually repressed and him fighting that repression, and him using his position of, I guess, quote, power, because, he is this, priest. People look to priests for guidance and things like that, to manipulate and control her. In that sense, the kid's just an asshole.
And I think that's perfect too, because kids can be assholes.
Yeah, kids an asshole.
So I think that was meant to represent that part of misogyny where men can just be assholes.
Well, and it's if you don't agree with me, you're wrong, you're a bitch, right? I want to do this. I don't. Well, then you're just a bitch, because your preference doesn't align with mine.
Yeah.
And that's the kids. Yeah.
Um. Yeah.
That about covers it. I
And
mean, there are some keeners at the bar. Um,
yeah, the bartender and then the two bar rats.
right, yeah. Um,
Um.
which they're not as important at all, really. Just to represent that every man in this village is essentially connected and are the same in a sense.
Well, and they only have two scenes together. Well, later in the movie, one of the bar rats, is the one who tries to knock like he runs at her, and then the other one is the one that actually manages to kick in the door.
Yeah.
So, but they have no speaking lines. So,
I mean,
um,
we can get to the technical stuff at the end, but I just can't imagine poor Rory Keener shooting that bar scene, because I mean, how many times he had to do it is just so insane.
yeah. Yeah, because he had to set up. He had to put on a fake beard to be the bartender, and then act like he's giving drinks to a cop. Him and Jeffrey's right there, and then he had to get in to make up for Jeffrey, and
yeah. I mean, it's a nightmare. I can't imagine how long that must have taken. But anyway, we'll get to that.
Well, you also got to think Jessie Buckley also probably had to shoot that scene multiple times
Oh, that's
too.
true. Yeah, because she's interacting with multiple. You're right.
Yeah.
By
But
the
yeah,
way,
we can get to that later.
I think I don't think we've done this yet, but we need to sing Jessie Buckley's praises. I think she's incredible. Just as as Rory Keener.
Well, we did. I'm thinking of ending things.
Well, I know. I mean, God, I'm thinking of anything is so brilliant, and this is also brilliant. She picks really cool roles to play. If it is in fact her decision, but
well, what was that show she did?
She was in Taboo with Tom Hardy, which is amazing. If I haven't talked about that enough on the show.
It was Fingernails. It was a Apple TV movie.
Oh, okay, I didn't see it.
It was a science fiction rom-com. It like it tests you, like give up a fingernail, and it like tests if you're compatible with the other person. It's got our boy Riz Ahmed in it.
Oh, okay.
And
like
our boy Jeremy Allen White.
Oh, right on. Maybe eventually I'll see it.
But anyway, yeah. Jessie Buckley is, she's phenomenal, and I think she got to speak in her actual Irish accent.
Yeah. It's so weird. These English and these Irish and Scottish actors, very rarely do they get to speak in their God-given accents when they're doing movies. So it's cool when they get.
Yeah, like I just want to do a sidebar real quick. Like David Tennant, he's an Irish actor. When he was on Doctor Who, he had to speak in a British accent. Ashley and I, for our Halloween movies, we watched the remake of Fright Night, which I love, and he's in it, but he also speaks in a British accent. I think the only role I've ever seen him in where he gets to actually speak his regular Irish accent is Scrooge McDuck in the revival of DuckTales.
Dumb. That's fine.
I'm just saying, dude. I'm just saying. I think that's the only time I've gotten to actually hear him speak his actual accent.
But it is interesting how that works with these with these actors from that area. But okay, so let's talk a little bit about the Green Man, because
okay.
By the way, this movie does not resemble a typical Alex Garland film. Alex Garland films like to use very soft lighting. There's a lot of glow. There's almost like a haze in a sense. You can see it in Annihilation, in Devs, in Civil War, which came out this year. This, however, he wanted to completely change direction, and everything is so vibrant and bright. And they waited to the last possible second before they could start shooting, because he goes, we have to wait till spring. We have to wait for everything to blossom and everything to be as green as possible. and thank God, because it looks incredible. Um,
Well, and again, I'm sure there's a reason for that, especially to tie in with the Green
of
Man.
course.
Um, because in folklore, I'm sure you read this too, that the Green Man is supposed to represent um, rebirth. Here, let me get it back up again before I
It's the,
put.
the cycle of growth and decay.
Mhm.
So it's,
And also male fertility.
look at that. Well, that makes sense. Um, and we'll get to that. But yeah. So the, I mean, just the green is incredible. It almost looks, it doesn't look real.
Yeah.
How green everything is. And so when the Green Man pops up, you don't know he's the Green Man. I mean, we have no clue. I definitely didn't. There's no indication he is until near the very end when he starts putting the leaves on his face. But
Mhm.
but he's sort of he's very very eerie, very creepy. However, I don't see the Green Man as a villain in this. However, he's presented to be that way. I think it's sort of a misdirect um, throughout the whole movie because he's just this very strange, seemingly homeless vagrant who is stalking Harper, right?
Mhm.
However, once the movie progresses and once he ends up metamorphosizing, I guess, into the Green Man. Once he steps into the garden at the end in his full leaf face, um, first off, it's terrifying. Um,
Yeah.
it's very strange. It's very surreal. And again, I can't. I mean, I think most people listening to this, Zach, will agree that I don't think any of us knew who the Green Man was, and so it's very off-putting and it's very weird, and we don't get it. Like, what is going on? Um, and yeah, and but at the very end, he doesn't do anything to harm Harper. I think the Green Man specifically, I don't think does anything to try to harm Harper. I think it's these men, whether it is actually happening or not. I don't think that matters in this sense, um, because at the very end, Harper is being attacked by and pursued violently by these men, one right after the other, and they all seem to be connected in the same, and they all share injuries when she harms one, or you know, when especially when their forearms and hands get sliced open, um, they all share that wound, and they all share the ankle wounds, and then of course it all ends up being James's wounds, um, that she is unknowingly recreating when she's fighting off
Mhm.
these men, um, which I thought was brilliant. um, it's such an interesting way to look at working through trauma. To me, that's
Mhm.
what it all symbolized. It's she's fighting back, she's taking a stand, she's taking control of her life, she is she is dominating these malevolent forces that are coming into the house. And with each strike, with each blow, with each injury, she's recreating James's injuries. She is
Mhm.
she's recreating that trauma, and she's working through the trauma. She's working through what James has done to her. She's working through this misplaced guilt that he has put upon her that she does not deserve. And by the time the Green Man shows up and is rebirthing all of these men, again retaining the same injuries,
Mhm.
who's the last person to be born? And that's James. Um, and I thought it was incredible. I think now it's more incredible, but watching it for the first time, the first thing I thought of was people are going to hate this.
Oh yeah. So before I piggyback on what you were just saying, so when I was rewatching this, I was rewatching a little bit of it at work too, and then I got home to finish it. Literally, last 10 minutes.
Thank God.
The birthing scene.
Yeah.
No, I didn't get that far at work.
Thank God.
But when I got home, it was that scene.
Yeah.
And Ashley was like, "Ew." And I was like, "I told you weren't gonna like this." And she was like, "That." And it was specifically Jeffrey birthing James.
Oh yeah, out of his mouth.
Out of his mouth.
Yeah.
And Ashley was like, "That's disgusting." I was like, "I told you weren't gonna like this movie." Honestly, actually, I could see Ashley liking the movie all the way up until that point.
Sure.
But anyway, to piggyback on what you're just saying about Harper taking control, I actually have up what Jessie Buckley said about it.
Okay.
I'm going to read it just real quick. She said, "I think she went to become. I think she went to come to terms with the kind of monsters within herself and the monsters outside of herself, and to meet them and for them to meet each other. It doesn't follow the horror trope where the damsel in distress slays the dragon, you know? She meets the dragon and comes to learn how to live with the thing and learn from the thing."
I really like that because you're right. Everything is resolved technically in terms of catharsis, in terms of her working through the trauma, but I mean, the evil is not defeated necessarily.
I would say if there's any evil of the movie, obviously besides misogyny,
right.
It would be guilt too, because like I said at the top of the show, even though Harper learns from the upstairs neighbors that James, forced his way into their apartment, she still doesn't know if him falling was an accident or if it was intentional. So she's still carrying that guilt that he put upon her. But now, I agree with what you said and what Jessie said, which is that Harper can learn to move past it, but also learn from it. And I think, that's a really, really interesting way how Alex Garland deals with trauma and deals with guilt in the film.
Yeah, totally. I think that, at the very end, when James is sitting next to her on the couch, and she asks just, what does he want? He goes, your love. And she just sighs and goes, yeah. Meaning, yeah, I know that's what you want, but that's not what you're going to get. And that's not really what he wants. He doesn't want her love. He wants her. He wants her attention. He wants her life. He wants. He wants her to be with him in a way that like a servant would be, with a king or something. He doesn't want a partner. He wants a, I don't know. He wants a servant basically, and not in a cook and clean way, but in a, in an emotional way.
Well, here, let me put it to you like this.
Sure.
Because I like what you were just saying with he doesn't want a partner. He doesn't want a partner. He wants, and I'm going to put this in quotes, so for the people watching, he doesn't want a partner. He wants a wife.
Sure.
Yeah. He wants someone to be, I think what you're trying to say is he wants someone to be subservient.
Yeah, he wants an object
to him.
Yeah, he wants an object of subservience. That's exactly what it is. That's probably the words that were eluding me because, and she understands that that's not That's what he's saying, but that's not what he means. And she knows that's
Yeah.
not what he means, and she knows that was never his intentions. And
Yeah.
the film ends in such a unique way because because we get the title card at the very end, and then when her friend shows up, this is what's so interesting, because when her
Yeah.
friend shows up, there is aftermath. There is evidence that things did happen at the house. So it's like, oh, okay. So, which I was taken aback by, because I thought once she finally confronts all that she was meant to, and she's finally worked through it, and this was the end result, this was the end goal, I thought
Mm-hmm.
her friend was going to show up, and this was, I don't want to say that it was just like all in her head, because that's bullshit, but this was, her,
A manifestation.
yeah, this it was all metaphor, it was all allegory, whatever, right? But no, the car is wrecked. She's
There's
all, yeah,
blood.
there's blood
Yeah.
everywhere. There's, as I'm like, oh, okay, so that's really interesting, in a way that this film is not following a sort of traditional pattern, because yes, it is allegorical, yes, it is symbolic, yet it is all of that, plus it is it is diegetic, it is happening to these characters as well,
Mm-hmm.
which I thought was fascinating. And I still don't get, and I still don't get her pregnancy, because it is a reveal.
The reveal, yeah, the reveal that Riley's pregnant.
It
Yeah.
is important. It is hinted at earlier when she's on FaceTime that, she's going to watch Harper get drunk. So they're alluding to she can't drink. But you move past it because there's so much happening. But when she arrives, she's pregnant, and you're like, that's important, because why else would she be? There's no other reason.
Well, I think maybe to tie back into this idea of rebirth, of growth.
Sure.
Because I know the three of us, you, me, and Alex, theorized maybe that's something else to do with Harper. Maybe Harper is infertile, but I don't think so. Now with this rewatch, I think maybe it's meant to. Alex Garland's doubling down on now Harper can move past this and grow.
Mm-hmm.
Here's evidence her friend's pregnant.
In some of my research, I saw someone interpret it as she smiled at her friend showing up because that's her finding out she was pregnant. I go, no. Absolutely
her friend's
not.
Like 4 months pregnant.
Yeah, there's no way she didn't know, so I don't buy that at all.
I think Harper smiling at Riley is meant for us, the audience, to know that she's going to be good. She's going to be fine.
And that, she has found what she needed.
Peace.
She has worked through what she needed to, and that she is now going to move forward and move on. Again, not getting rid of this trauma, but working through it, learning from it, and growing and being better because of it. Because if she had gotten rid of it, then it's kind of like, I don't know, to think of an analogy. It's like, I don't know, it's like learning anything, it's like learning how to do sort of any task. If you work really hard and you learn it, but then that part's gone because you've defeated the learning part of it, you've defeated the training part of it, then you didn't learn it because it's gone, right? That's a horrible analogy. I can't think, it's late, but
well, no,
but again, Alex Garland is intentionally not killing off whatever these beings, these supernatural like beings. They remain. She has not gotten rid of them.
Mhm.
But I like what you were saying, that she's living with it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's it's definitely something that Harper's going to have to process and still work through, and it's going to be a part of her. You know, Harper even kind of hints at that early on in the movie when she first gets there, that this will always be a part of her. Um, but Harper now at the end of the movie can learn to live with it and learn to grow
Right.
past it. Yeah.
Now, one of I think one of the coolest and most interesting symbols in the film are dandelions. Rain. Do you want to talk about how important the dandelions are? Because not only are they important in the sense of they are shown a lot throughout the film, and the Green Man blows dandelions in Harper's face when he arrives at the house. But the film also ends with dandelions reconvening into the ball during the end credits. So have at it.
Yes. So I learned this when I was looking up information on some of the symbols and things like that in the film. And let me find it. Hang on, everyone, shut up. Hang on. I'm almost there. Okay. So this is what I thought was so cool, and it actually gives us a big hint throughout the entire movie. The symbolism of the dandelions is significant. I'm reading the IMDb thing.
Oh, okay.
Uh, dandelions reproduce asexually through a process called parenthalogenesis, whatever.
Wow.
Future Ring can put it up on the screen.
Sure.
Which means all dandelions are clones of the original specimen. This is a clue to the nature of the men in the village.
Yeah. Yeah, dandelions.
Isn't that
yeah.
fucking cool?
Yeah, dandelions don't need like outside pollination or any sort of outside source in order to replicate or grow or spread, which
Yeah.
is really interesting. Which again plays into that whole last 10 minutes of the birthing sequence, which again I thought was so cool and so interesting. And I knew people were going to hate it, and I knew people were going to think that it was too gross or too weird. And it's sort of like, dude, if you're watching this movie, man, like, you're kind of stoked to see something super gross and super weird at that point, because you're like, well, let's go,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really like that Alex Garland put in dandelions in there as this sort of subtle hint and subtle symbol throughout the film, and truly throughout. I mean, it is beginning to end. There are dandelions throughout the film. One of my favorite sequences, which seems out of place, is the decomposing deer in the field, which I thought was really cool, because again, it's about that cycle of growth and decay. So you have this dead animal that is decaying, but life is growing from the decaying animal. And so there's that cycle, and that's what the Green Man represents.
Yep. And that's that's exactly what we just summed up like 2 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. With that being said, Jeremy, are you ready to wrap up?
Yeah. Going in circles.
Yeah, I love the idea that Alex Garland had, because I guess this is an oops I forgot, but not really. Of him wanting to tell a story, like he'd been wanting to tell a story with Green Man and Julia of the Breast for like 10 years. He was wanting to work them into a script. So I find it interesting that he uses these two kind of folklore in a film, which yes is about coming to terms with your trauma, living with it, making it a part of yourself and then moving forward, but also telling this story of misogyny and the microaggressions and macroaggressions that men do to women. And it's just it's so fantastic, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jesse Buckley gives an awesome performance. So does Rory Keener, obviously.
Yeah.
You know that he's, you know, and you know what's funny is I hadn't really seen Rory Keener in much. Mainly the new, well, not I wouldn't say new, but the Daniel Craig James Bond films. As
Yeah, he is in those. I think most, well, not most. I think that a lot of people will recognize him. At least he's such a recognizable face for the first episode of Black Mirror. And of course, that first episode being so subversive and so shocking, and yeah,
but yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So the point I was making is just, yeah, I hadn't seen him in much, and then he just kills it. I on IMDb they put that he plays 10 different
yeah,
characters,
and
and he wanted all of them to have their own unique identity too, which is
well, of course, right?
insane.
I mean, that's the pro. He wants it to be different. He wants every character to feel unique and in its own thing, its own unique identity in person. So I think that's, good on him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love this movie. The music, by the way, is insane. It's so good.
I agree.
And tying in her looping echoes eventually in the soundtrack that she was doing in the tunnel, I thought was really cool. Here's an oops, I forgot. Who is that in the tunnel? It is not the Green Man, because the guy in the tunnel has clothes on.
Really?
Yes.
How can you tell?
You can see his jacket move in the tunnel, because I was looking really close this time. I was like, I gotta find out who that is, and I'm looking super close, and he's wearing clothes, so I'm like, it's not him, so it's someone else.
Well, what if it's just one of the other men?
I mean, sure, could be,
and then when she's in the field, he morphs into the Green Man.
It's possible. It's possible. I don't know. That's a fun little, mystery that
yeah,
that has no stakes, but it's fun to think about.
Yeah.
So yeah, the movie's amazing. Definitely give it a chance if you haven't already. If you listen to this and you think it sounds really gross and really weird, still, I would check it out. Give it a try.
Yeah,
give it a try.
I agree.
Yeah.
So, Jeremy, you ready to hear what
Yeah.
we're talking about next week?
Yeah.
Because I am so excited that you and I both were like, yeah, man.
Yeah.
Let's do that. So everyone, if you, listen to our episode on Safe. Well, actually, people listen to the episode. They just didn't watch it.
Oh, okay. People actually listen. That's good.
The Spotify had like 6 listens.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Look at us.
But anyway, but if you did listen, you'll know that I'm very excited for next week, because we're going to do it again. We're going to do another Halloween special. But this time it's over something, even though I know you'd like The Evil Dead, but this is something that you got me into and that you and I have gotten other people into. And I can't believe we're going to do it. And also, it's a first for the show. Probably only because I don't think we could do this with any other ones. But next week, everyone, we're doing our first breakdown of a TV show. And specifically a TV show that I even mentioned to Ashley is quite interesting because it came out in 2016, but it seems like now it's suddenly getting like a resurgence. No, not 2016. I'm sorry, 2014.
2014, yeah.
Because
10 years old.
Because they're doing a 10-year anniversary pretty soon.
Yeah.
So next week, everyone, we are going to be discussing the 10-episode Cartoon Network show Over the Garden Wall. I know we've mentioned it in past episodes of how fantastic it is. And, you know, it just kind of fit. I mentioned to you a couple weeks ago that I think we should do a Halloween episode. And no. I said we should do Over the Garden Wall, kind of joking. And you said we should do it for the Halloween episode.
Yeah, we should definitely do it. It's like 2 hours long. It's fine. You know, it's easy.
Yeah, everyone.
Yeah. By the way, so when I saw it last year for the first time. I'd heard about it. I actually got it confused with Gravity Falls. So over the years, because people were talking about it, like, oh, okay, it's that show that now I'm obsessed with both because I'm almost done with Gravity Falls right now. I've been watching
Gravity Falls is so good.
But
maybe we'll do that one next.
Probably not. But it's too long. But with this one, I watched it last year. I thought I'd give it a try, and I absolutely loved it. And I go, oh, I'm sure this is like something Rain watches every year because this is completely up your alley. I mean, you would love this. And so I asked you about it, and I go, hey, man, I know you're going to get mad at me, but I just started watching Over the Garden Wall. And you're like, what's that?
Yeah, I was like,
what?
I don't know what you're talking about. And so literally the day you texted me that, I was like, you know, I'm going to watch it. And this was when I was still working at AT&T. I go on my lunch break, pop up my iPad, go on Hulu on Max, when it was on Max. And I was, because you told me, you're like, well, you better watch it as quick as you can. It's leaving Max.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right. So I get on Max. And when I started it, I was like, okay, I mean, I guess. I don't know why Jeremy thought I would like this so much. Until the fucking dog puts his head through the barrel, I was like, what the fuck am I watching? And from that moment, I was hooked. And I love it, dude. Yeah. I mean, no one can see it on camera, but I'm wearing a little Wirt friendship bracelet. Ashley has the Greg one.
Yeah, I mean, it is something that is absolutely beloved by millions of people. This is something that people watch every year during this time of year, during fall. This movie, I think, perfectly captures autumn and fall and the change of the seasons. And it is some of the cutest things I've ever seen mixed with some of the scariest things I've ever seen. And it melds it so perfectly, and these characters are so likable and so lovable, and it's wonderful. It's a wonderful show, and you put it all together, it's just like over 2 hours, and it's perfect. So yeah, we're gonna do Over the Garden Wall next week.
Yeah, everyone. So just to give a little bit more tease for next week, how we'll probably do it. We've already been discussing is we'll probably break down an episode at a time. I feel like it would be too daunting, and honestly, not doing the show justice if we just try to break down the entire story. So I think it would be better if we broke down an episode, move on to the next episode, break that one down. So prepare yourselves. Next week might be a little long.
Might be tedious.
But you know what, man? I think I feel like we're gonna have a lot of fun with this one.
I agree.
And again, it's perfect for the Halloween episode. Now, granted, it's gonna be out before Halloween, but it's semantics, you know.
It's fine.
It's neither here nor there.
That's right.
It's fine. But cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, everyone, we hope you enjoyed this episode on Men, and we will see you next week for Over the Garden Wall.